Hello and welcome to Oh the Horror, where we all go a little mad sometimes. I'm Jack Ellis,
And I'm Matt Ellis.
and today we're going to be discussing the 2018 sequel to 2008 horror film The Strangers Pray at Night. Like I said, it was released 10 years after its original film, and yeah. I don't really know much of the names in this movie, but I know that the main person was in Mad Men, Christina Hendricks, and yeah. So again, The Strangers is a movie that we both really liked, and so
Here, one thing I'd like to bring up is when we talked about the first one, we mentioned how when the couple that was at the cabin was first being terrorized by the strangers, it showed the one called Pinup Girl just standing in their front yard in the middle of the night, of course wearing her mask. And we both talked about what would have been the protocol when seeing something like that. Of course, we both agreed leaving one person there while the other goes out to get cigarettes is not the answer. But we want to know from you guys. Just comment in the comment section what you would have done if you were in that situation where it's the middle of the night and someone is just standing in your front yard looking at your house and wearing a creepy mask.
Yeah. So anyway, this movie starts with a classic Strangers cold open where an old couple is in their trailer home, and one gets up in the middle of the night and sees one of the strangers. I think her name's like Baby Doll or something, and she's standing in the living room, cut to black, and then and then the stranger then starts laying down in her bed with her husband, and so that's the end of the cold open. And yeah, do you have anything to say about that?
No, I mean the cold open was pretty good. I thought, it didn't show anyone being killed, and it even showed her laying in the bed like next to the guy, and that was an oh shit moment for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked the open.
Yeah. And so we're then brought into this family who is having one last outing, I guess, hurrah, before one of their daughter, I don't remember the name of the actor or the name of the character. I know she was the little kid in middle school, The Worst Years of My Life, but that's really the only thing I know her from. But anyway, she's going off to boarding school after an unspecified incident in which she got in a lot of trouble. And this sort of creates a rift between the characters, but they're not explicitly bickering at each other the entire time, which is nice. And a lot of times with horror movies, you get this hook of one last blank, like, oh, somebody's about to move out the next day, or oh, it's the last day of summer, or something like that. And it's sort of, I don't know, it's sort of, in my opinion, a bit of a cheap way to set things up. This is strictly me talking, I'm not objective, but it always seemed to me as if, it's just sort of a forced way to create tension. And I've just never been a huge fan of it. But yeah, they get to the cabin, and that is when we find out that this all is happening 10 years after the events of the first movie. And so before we get into the good stuff, I guess, what's your opinion on the family at large before all this stuff happens?
The family at large seems to be an okay family. Like, they just seem to be your typical middle-class American family of four, except that the daughter is actually troubled. Like, it wasn't just the one incident at her school that made her parents want to send her to boarding school. I mean, she was just not a good kid.
Yeah, like I didn't mean it to be like just one incident. There was just like it's referred to as just one thing that the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak.
Right. And yeah, and it's that kind of makes it surprising that she does have these problems when she seems to come from a good family. And I do agree with what you said a minute ago about how it was kind of cheesy that like all of it happens right before something big is about to happen. But what kind of made this one seem different is, it wasn't like right before someone was going to get married or someone was about to move to a different place. It's like, it was a bunch of bad shit that went down right before a lot of drama was about to go down. Like they decided to go out to their family cabin to spend the weekend before they sent their daughter away to boarding school. So,
yes, and it is sort of hard to not think about the fact that we usually don't need to have spoiler warnings on our videos because we do in-depth conversations about movies, and if you don't want them spoiled, just go watch the movie or just watch something else. But, I hate to spoil this horror movie for you, but some of the main characters are gonna die. And so, like, you gotta think that when the one girl, like, when both her mom or dad are dead, she's sad, obviously, but then you think, well, now I don't have to go to boarding school.
No, just into foster care.
Yeah. And so...
But wait, one thing I want to fill in is that a couple things that were left out as far as, like, how it was set up with the way they did what they did in the first one, where Baby Doll, the blonde one, goes up to their place and asks twice if Tamara's home. She does it once and then maybe like a couple hours later, but and like with this one, by the second time she came back, part of the main cast was gone because the daughter, she obviously was mad about having to go to boarding school, and she just left the cabin they were in a fit of rage. And then the parents told their son, I can't remember who his name is either, to go after her. And he does, and they're sort of able to talk things over. And it's actually, as they're making it, she's into the point of being in tears because of being sent away, but then he reminds her, this could be a good chance for you to get to reinvent yourself, and how she could now be anybody she wants to be. And that kind of really helped her out. And they're walking back to their cabin and even like laughing, but they stumble across their aunt and uncle's house, the two people who were killed in the cold open. They go inside and they see that their aunt and uncle were killed and were just left in these atrocious conditions. Like they had like writing on them, and like I think their jaws were, like they had their jaws broken or something.
Yeah.
I mean they were dismembered in some way. I don't remember the exacts. And then so of course those two are freaking out and head back to where their parents are, and they tell them what happens. And then I think, yeah, it's the dad and the son who decide to go check it out. But it's at that point when Baby Doll makes her appearance for the first time to them with her mask on, and you'll notice that all of their cell phones are smashed and just completely broken. So then the daughter and the mom, they turn around and they see this woman they've never met before, wearing a creepy mask and actually holding a knife. So that's about where you had ended things. I'll let you take it from here.
And another thing is that this movie had some unintentional comedy with at least one of the sightings of Baby Doll is she's just like on a swing set or something like that.
I think that was the first one, wasn't it?
Is it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, well, anyway, that is kind of funny. And always, some of the Stranger stuff, it always kind of reminds me of like, I don't know if anybody here watches like The Kill Count by Dead Meat. He always, when he talked about this movie, he said like, when they started writing hello on the window, like put the kettle on and invite these folks inside. They just want to be friendly. But anyway, so you get to this point where there always has to be a point in a horror movie where you have to establish that the phone isn't working. And you can do this in any semblance of way, and it makes sense. And this movie wasn't bad, per se. It's not Halloween 2018 with somebody throwing somebody else's phone into, like, nacho cheese or something. But it's... all the parents, like, gather up everybody's phone and they put them somewhere. And this does seem like something that would happen in real life. But during it, you can just tell that it's just going to be the setup for all their phones getting destroyed. And that, I like the first movie's way of doing it, where somebody just leaves it on a table, and then when they come back, it's just completely destroyed. I mean, it's simple but effective. But then later on through the movie, we get more of a sense of how this family, their feelings toward each other, if they even really like each other, and they seem to love each other, but there's just a lot of strife there and red tape, so to speak. And, but the thing that always I questioned about this movie was there's a 10-year gap between the first or the second movie. And the Strangers, from the beginning all the way to the end, you get the feeling that they're not, that this is something they're doing like full time. Like they're going on like a road trip across the country, invading houses and killing people. And you can tell by the end of the movie that they're not like, they're new at it, but they have done it a couple times. And so you get this, and so after 10 years, it's a common thing in criminology that serial killers don't just stop. They stop when they either get captured or killed. And so you gotta wonder, were they just doing this like for years after this? Just home invasion after home invasion, and going house by house just for an entire decade? Wouldn't they become like, national, on the national spotlight with this, and they become like famous serial killers? I mean, I guess you could, make it seem like they were all separate, unrelated home invasions, but the different movies, at least from what I've seen, they don't seem to make it look like a robbery or something like that. It all looks like they went in specifically to kill these people. So at one point, cops might think this is connected, but I'm rambling. I think they just may have the Strangers may have a little bit of light on them now that it's 10 years later, and we don't know if they've been doing this the entire time or there was just a 10-year gap, which would be kind of weird. But yeah, I'm rambling, but we get to when things really start to heat up as the daughter and mother are left at the home while the father and son go to investigate. And so Baby Doll eventually gets in the house. She steals a butcher knife, and the two run to the kitchen. And it's always my favorite moment in a horror movie where they're like locked in a room, and then the person that's locked in just yells, "Leave us alone." Like, can you imagine,
Like she's just gonna do that.
yeah, like she's just, you can imagine if that actually worked one time and the killer was just like, okay, understandable, good day, people.
Yeah.
But, yeah, then they're able to crawl out, or not there, but the daughter is able to crawl out of the bathroom as Baby Doll is able to get in and kill the mother. And the thing that's sad is the daughter ends up watching the entire thing, and that's a really sad moment. But then we go to a scene where a father and son are going to get a gun from another house, or maybe it's the same house. And
I
then
think it is the same house.
Okay, so they then see Sackhead outside, and they're getting ready to kill him, but then he disappears, and then they get in their car, and I think it crashes in this one.
Well, no, first they go to...
Yeah, is there anything I'm missing? It's been a while since my last rewatch, so...
It's alright. First they actually go to the house where the mother and daughter are, and that's where they find that the mother has been killed. And at that point, they, of course, are just pretty torn up and just trying to keep it together and really just try to get out of there. I think that was when they were driving along, and that they were driving the truck, and Sackhead appeared out of nowhere and threw a brick at their windshield.
Oh, yeah.
And that caused them to crash. And when they did, they crashed into, I think it was a trailer and a tree, something nearby, pierced through both the windshield and the dad's chest. And so he's fighting for his life, but he tells his son to just go, get his sister and get out of there, which he does. And then Sackhead just sits in the passenger seat and smokes a cigar while that man is slowly and gruesomely dying.
Yeah, and again, this movie is filled with a lot of really sweet moments between, the family, because before he tells the kid to go and get help, his last words to his son apparently are "I'm proud of you," which is actually really touching. And he, so as you said, Sackhead watches this guy die, and then he turns up the radio, which is playing a song, and he pulls out an ice pick or a screwdriver or something, and it's just implied that he ends up dying. And so the daughter and son end up meeting up, and she's wounded, so he takes care of her.
Well, wait, there's...
Yeah,
I don't mean to keep interrupting you.
No, it's fine. I'm probably forgetting something.
Well, what happens is the kid eventually does find his sister, but she is right about to be killed by Dollface, and she is wounded, you're right. But then the kid shows up there, but he has a gun and she has a knife, because, serial killers, I noticed they don't always like to use guns. I think it was in The Joker who had said that he doesn't like to kill people with guns. He prefers to use knives and stuff like that, because it actually makes you feel more connected to the killing.
Yeah, I think the reason they use knives as opposed to guns in this movie, and obviously these people are inspired by movie killers such as Michael Myers or something like that, is that with a knife, it's quick, it's relatively painless, and, relatively, as opposed to a knife or something. But I think with a knife, not only is there more connection, but also, they really enjoy the pain that somebody's going through, because I feel like guns were invented to kill people more efficiently, but knives might be slower and more painful.
Right, it's like with a gun, you can kill someone and they don't even see it coming, but it's like, you know, you really make it a slower process with a knife.
Yeah, I mean, if you go online and hear stories of people who've been both shot and stabbed, people who've been shot, it takes them like 4 or 5 seconds for it to register what happened. But with somebody who's been stabbed, they feel every millisecond of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, off from this tangent, what?
Oh, right. So of course, Dollface, she lays off his sister, but she still doesn't really show much fear. She just laughs and says, "Are you gonna shoot me?" And which was really just a creepy part of it. It really does show that these guys are psychopaths who just really do not fear anything. But yeah, he ends up deciding not to shoot her, even though his sister keeps pushing him to shoot her. And she even says, you know, "Hey, give me the gun, I'll just do it." But, you know, he just puts his foot down, decides not to, and they leave. And that's something else I'd like for you all to comment on after this is, do you think he made the right decision by not shooting her? Because personally, I mean, obviously, we can see as people who have seen it all the way through to the end that it would have been the better option, because, you know, she ends up coming back for them. She doesn't take that as a warning to just stay away. And also, if it would have been morally justifiable for him to do that after they had killed both of his parents and tried to kill his sister and himself.
I think nobody would argue the morals of him shooting her, but I think it brings home an important point that, you know, he's not like them, and it's harder for him to take any life than theirs is. And, you know, you see a lot in other horror movies, the second somebody has a gun, they shoot at the killer without hesitation, which is the sensible thing to do. But, you know, you get this sense that you know, this is like
I mean, it's never right to shoot an unarmed person.
Yeah.
Pretty much, but go on.
I mean, this sort of question has been the foundation for multiple characters like Batman or Dexter. And, you know, it's not so much in the moral quandary of it, but it's just, he just doesn't have the nerve to do it. And that's not really something that should be, you know, shamed or frowned upon. But it's just like, he just couldn't get up the nerve to do it, even though she had done so much, is at least what I think. But
right, and I agree. Yeah, so like I said, you know, you guys comment why you think he decided not to, if that was the best move, just all that stuff. Okay, so then next he gets his sister and he takes her to another cabin where he can treat her wounds. And of course, his sister, she's freaking out. He's trying to calm her down. He's you know, telling her funny stories from when they were kids, and so then what he does next is, this is another thing I don't really know if this was the right move or not. Is he leaves her under the shed of the house they were hiding at, while he goes to the welcome center of the area they were staying in. I think it was like a welcome center. It had a pool and everything, to get a phone and call the cops. Now, the reason why he left her could have been many reasons. It could have been because she was too wounded to be able to get there, or he could have felt like she would have just slowed him down and they would have both been killed, or maybe he felt like she'd be safer there than going to get a phone. I don't really know. But yeah, he manages to break into that visitor center / gift shop and looks for a phone, but Pinup Girl is already there. She's just, kind of stalking him until he walks outside, and he's got a golf club, by the way, at this point. He gets it from the store, and he's just kind of looking at, like, when he looks out, though, it's weird. He goes outside, and all the lights, all the music turns on, and she tries to sneak up on him, which probably would have been better had she not turned everything on first, but she does, and he manages to turn around and just knock her on her ass with his golf club.
He just whacks her with it, which is...
Yeah. Like, he does it as he's turning around, which was... So, and then she's on the ground, eyes closed. You'd think she's dead, but then she opens her eyes, and he manages to stab her to death while she's trying to kill him again. And he does, but right after that is when Sackman...
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Just, wasn't there one moment where he, like, leaves a gun on the table and, like, one of the strangers drives through the trailer home and that's how they lose a gun or something? Or isn't there a moment where, like, somebody drives through one of the trailer homes while the wounded person is in there?
I don't think so. Yeah, actually, I think Sackman drove his truck through the home that they were hiding in while he was taking care of his sister's wounds, and then they ran to another house and he had her hide under something, and that is, I think, how they lost their gun.
What would have been funny is, like, the whole time they're screaming, like, help or help us. Wouldn't it have been funny if you went to, like, the welcome center and there's just one person there with, like, headphones on or something like that?
that would have been nice. And yeah, and then Sackman, but he doesn't try to sneak up on him. He actually walks there with his axe, like, dragging on the ground, and you can clearly hear it. And then the kid says something that also kind of stuck with me, is he just says, I just killed one of yours. How does that feel? Huh, how the fuck does that feel? Like, and then those two, like, go at it, and they end up in the pool, and as the kid's trying to get out, Sackman actually stabs the kid with the axe right in the back.
Yeah, and this scene is probably what most would agree is the single greatest scene in the movie, because it's so, like, stylistic in the way it's shot, and it's just a very well-made and well-constructed scene. The kid does end up surviving in the end, or at least comatose, but, like, wouldn't, like, if he stabbed, like, being in water would be one of the worst things for him, right? Because of, like, bleeding out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I digress. What happens next?
Well, that ends up being the end of that scene. It just shows his blood turning the pool red, and it's pretty gruesome. Then it goes to his sister, I think, tries to go find him, and she sees him there, and then she tries to run away, and then eventually she manages to find a park ranger driving his car.
I think it was actually a police officer. Like, he had actually ended up being able to reach the police, and they actually got there. So
yeah, that probably was the case. And then he gets out, sees her as just a mess, and tries to talk to her, but as she's trying to explain what's happening, Dollface sneaks up on him and just slits his throat in front of her.
Yeah, sorry. And that's a really cool and gory scene to me, but it's just like the cop gets there, and then no sooner than when he does is he just immediately killed. Like, there goes into that plot point. And I know, but it does lead to another really good scene where she gets in the cop car, and Babyface reveals she has the keys. She took them from him, and I don't know if this was an intentional homage to Scream, but I did like it if it was one. And so once she is in the car, she finds a shotgun and she shoots Baby Doll once in the stomach and then shoots, and then like at the end she says, why are you doing this to us? And then you think she's gonna say the classic stranger's line, because you were home. But then in her dying moment, she ends up just saying, why not? And so you sort of get the idea that maybe these people are thrill killers and that they're just sort of bored with their lives, which is possible. And so she ends up getting double tapped and shot in the face. And if the pool scene isn't the greatest scene in this movie, I think that the scene at the end, the car scene, is pretty much up there.
And for the record, because of this movie, I can never hear a Total Eclipse of the Heart the same ever again.
Yeah. Whenever it plays, this movie at least runs through my mind. You know, but get to the scene. Sackhead appears with his truck, and she's trying to get away in the cop car. It's not starting. It's not great that a cop car is not starting, because I feel like cop cars should be at the top of their line as far as engine,
reliability.
Yeah. But of course, the horror genre is well known for their very capable cops or police departments. And so Sackhead ends up ramming the car a couple of times, just completely T-boning it. And eventually the car gets stuck and the truck leaks gas, and she has a lighter. And this whole scene is underscored by the song Making Love Out of Nothing at All by Air Supply, which I think was a brilliant choice. And so she pulls out the lighter, and as the music swells, she throws the lighter onto the gas, and the whole thing explodes, and she sort of screams before she does it as some sort of like catharsis, which I thought was really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably worth pointing out, though, too, that the reason all the oil is leaking out of the guy's truck is because he was ramming into those cars. So,
Yeah.
So she manages to make lemons out of lemonade. I mean, lemonade out of lemons there, and just is like, and she's looking at him as she's about to burn his car and him up in flames, and it's just like, here's your preview of hell, buddy. and
Yeah, and so as that happens, we get another moment of unintentional humor where as she's walking away and she thinks she's free from it all, the flaming car backs up and starts following her again. And this is a great scene too, because it's a flaming car that's chasing her, and has a wounded leg, so she can't do much of anything. And so they get to a bridge, and she falls over. It looks like the end of the line. She's got nowhere to run. And then the car stops, and Sackhead gets out, and he's clearly in a lot of pain, and then he reveals that he has a huge shard of glass in his stomach, which he pulls out. And this scene, it's one of my biggest pet peeves, I guess you'd call it, when in a movie, if somebody has the choice to, I get they're not thinking rationally, but if they have the choice to leave what stabbed them in their body, and then they just take it out, because most doctors will tell you if somebody leaves the knife in, don't take the knife out, because that'll cause more blood loss. But anyway, he falls to the ground, seemingly dead. She is able to get up, flag down a truck, and all seems resolved until
I actually really like this one too. Like it's Dawn just as she gets she's able to flag down a pickup truck that has like I think it's a married couple in it, but yeah, and like they they pick her up. She's driving, you know, and as they're
Actually, no, like, isn't there another thing that happens with?
Well, no, I know. I'm just saying, like. Oh wait, no, you want to say that thing?
Oh well, yeah. It's just that she flags in a truck, and you think you're gonna get the classic Texas Chainsaw ending, which is a movie we should probably talk about sooner or later.
Yeah.
And she is, you know, and then the driver looks confused, and then Sackhead appears behind them with an axe, still giving it one last try, and then she is able to hit him with something. I don't remember what it was.
A baseball bat.
A baseball bat, yeah. And he falls to the ground, dead. And so that is the end of The Strangers. And she does do the classic Texas Chainsaw ending of laughing as she finally gets away from the killer. And this is a really good ending because not only does that, but you get a shot a second where she's like driving away as like the sun is rising.
Right.
Which I always like that kind of ending on a horror movie.
Yeah.
But, yeah, do you have anything to say about the last few scenes we talked about? Because after this there's a denouement and then the movie's over.
Well, actually, I kind of have to disagree with that. I mean, that's not. I mean, there is that suspenseful ending, and then there's an alternative ending. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, what's the alternative ending?
Well, we'll talk about that in a sec. But yeah, I like that how you know, as they're driving away and she's finally getting to feel relieved and like it's dawn, the sun's coming up. It kind of relates to that Bible verse. It goes something like, "Though sorrow may last for the night, joy comes in the morning." And I kind of like how it's kind of. I don't think it was intentionally a testament to that, but I do like how it kind of relates to that.
Honestly, I think it was trying to homage Texas Chainsaw, but that's just me.
Maybe.
Yeah, but in most horror movies, you see it in Texas Chainsaw, Scream, Howling 2. Those are just the ones I can think of off the top of my head. Sunrise equals safety. And that was one of the tropes that you thought was going to happen in the first Strangers, but was actually very well subverted. And I think it works well in both cases. And yeah, so we get to the end. The kid is in the hospital, comatose, and so a nurse knocks on the door, which do people in hospitals really knock on the door before they come into hospital rooms?
If you didn't call them in.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that leads her to drop her cup in fear, and there's sort of this hint that she'll probably have PTSD for probably the rest of her life, in all honesty.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, what do you have to say on the ending?
Well, the ending was actually still pretty rough. What happens is the kid is there lying in his hospital bed. He is just covered in from head to toe in hospital gear. Not all that unsurprising, but there she is staying with him, you know, and she's of course pretty edgy at the moment. But what we actually see next is that everything goes silent and the door to their room opens and you see a painted on smiley face. And that was actually a symbol throughout at least the second movie. They drew it on different things, like in the house and on the car. Like Sackman drew a smiley face, and he drew one on their door and the door of all the others in the hospital in the vicinity we could see, to suggest that he is still alive and he knows that they're there. And then she just says hello, and it kind of ends like that. And in the alternative ending, it just shows that happening, and then all the lights go out, and then you just hear the girls screaming. Which
I didn't know about either of those endings, in all honesty. I just thought it ended with her like being like really scared or something like that. But no. I mean, yeah, I get it. In horror movies, you gotta have that little hint that maybe the monster is still alive or something like that. But yeah, I honestly forgot about that. So
Yeah, so that kind of suggests that, and if he's gonna kill her, I imagine he's probably gonna kill the kid too, and he won't even have that much trouble with it.
Yeah, and it actually kind of would be cool to see maybe a like Halloween 2 style sequel to this movie. I know I keep bringing up that movie for some reason. Maybe I just have it on the brain, but to where he's stalking them to like the hospital or something like that, or even sometime after that. And I can't imagine him actually being in the hospital because a person in a suit with a sack on his head isn't exactly inconspicuous. But yeah, so as far as the ending, I think it's really good. It's the movie itself is, as you watch it, it's very all right, but I think the ending was very well made.
I don't know. The ending, it probably would have made more sense for her brother to have just passed away in that scene, because the average time it takes for somebody to bleed out is about 7 minutes. And here you have this kid who's just, bleeding out in the pool from an axe wound. And in the time it would have taken her to...
I don't know if it was an axe wound. For some reason, I think it was the knife. Like,
Probably
it was the knife
was.
they used to kill Pinup Girl.
Yeah. Okay, so but he's like bleeding out from a knife wound in a pool. There's nobody around, so in the time it would have taken his sister to get to that truck and have the truck take her somewhere to get help, and then have the ambulance get all the way over to where that visitor center is. I'm pretty sure he would have bled out by then.
Yeah, that's always something that's bothered me about this movie too, and also the fact that she is driving back and it is like sunrise. I get that you have to have some time dilation in a movie, especially the all-in-one-night kind of movies, but it just didn't sit right with me, in all honesty. But yeah, so to summarize, movie as a whole, alright. I didn't like it so much my first viewing, but after a couple rewatches, I've come to appreciate the sort of artistry, and the first one plays more of a suspenseful Texas Chainsaw Halloween sort of way, and then this one plays more 80s slasher, akin to Friday the 13th or something, and I really appreciate both styles, and I think this movie is a completely serviceable sequel. Not great, but it does its job.
Well, personally, I really liked both movies. I mean, honestly, the Strangers franchise is one of my favorite horror movies that there are. Honestly, I liked how in these ones, they didn't capture their prey at first. They didn't kill their prey at first. They just kind of play these cat and mouse games with them all night, in a way, kind of giving them a fighting chance. That's what I really liked about these. And
They're like the thrill of the hunt, pretty much,
Pretty much, yeah. They knew exactly what they were doing. So now me and Jack actually have a couple of different theories on the origin of their murder tendencies are. What was it that you said you thought was...
Well, the line, why not, I kind of thought that seemed like something that like people who thrill kill people will do, is they just do it because they get bored. Or honestly, I feel like as a whole these people are just, I don't like to boil down at least the mentally ill to this sort of thing, but these people are just psychopaths. They're just insane people who enjoy the pain they instill on others. That's just my theory.
But I thought you had said it another time that you thought they were part of maybe like a blood cult.
Well, I said that they were similar to the Manson murders. That was one of the things that this film was based on. It was based on Ketty Cabin murders and Manson, at least the first movie. And yeah, I just said that and the Mansons were a cult, obviously, so that might be where it came from.
Yeah, I always kind of just figured that they were, because, usually people kill as individuals. They don't, people that go on murder sprees usually don't kill in groups. So it kind of makes you wonder how they met each other. My thinking has just always been that they're siblings who just had a pretty fucked up childhood and then grew up to form like sort of a kill clan together, and that's just sort of why they go on and do this stuff. It's like, I mean, that's the only way. Like, you don't go up to people and just say, hey, my hobby is serial killing, what's yours? And they go like, hey, mine is too.
Yeah. And maybe another theory is, since their killings are so similar to other horror movies, maybe these are like a Scream sort of way of people who are obsessed with horror movies trying to live out that fantasy. And there is a true crime case that has actually kind of fascinated me lately. They're actually known as the Scream Killers. Two high schoolers by the name of Brian Draper and Tori Adamczyk, who murdered one of their classmates in their home late one night because of their shared love of horror movies and true crime. And they were proud of it. They actually filmed themselves before and after. And yeah, and so maybe that might be the case here, but the sibling thing is very possible because they do sort of act like some sort of weird family. But my thinking has always just been that they're just a group of very psychopathic people that love the pain they inflict on others.
Maybe they could have actually met. Maybe they could have actually met at a psych ward or something.
Yeah, and they could have even escaped from there and gone on their killing spree. But like with most horror movies, it's fun to speculate on that, and it's fun to do all this sort of thing. But at the end of the day, sometimes it's just scarier to not know.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So anyway, I know this episode has been a little long in the tooth, but yeah. So what would you rate this movie?
I'd give it an 8.
I would give it maybe 7.
Oh.
And so yeah, we'll have more episodes coming out soon. And
you want to tell them about the one next week?
Next week we will be having a very special episode. We will have Dr. Jeff Ellis, also known as our father, coming in to review a very specific disease movie that we will not reveal at this time. And he will talk about its relative accuracy, especially in recent years. So, yeah, other than that, I'm Jack Ellis.
And I'm Matt Ellis.
And this has been Oh the Horror. We'll see you next time.